This is John Beethan with healthandwellnessencinitas.com, where we talk the truth about wellness and give you the tools, resources, and access to things that actually work and heal from the wellness mecca of Encinitas, California, and well beyond. Today's show is episode number 18, titled Medical Qigong, Energy-Based Medicine with Dr. Madison Mansy. This is a re-podcast with Madison. We just felt like we wanted to get her back onto the show and let her talk a little bit more about what she does. And we'll be talking about helping others overcome anxiety, stress, and physical pain, finding the right practitioner, stress-related anxiety, and panic attacks. If you're on a podcatcher like the podcast app for iTunes, simply search in your podcatcher for Encinitas, and we'll be right there to subscribe to.
Welcome back. This is Lisa Thorpe with Health and Wellness Encinitas, and today I have our first return guest, Dr. Madison Mansy. She's a doctor of Chinese medicine who specializes in Qigong, and today she has two of her patients with her. Dr. Mansy, will you please introduce your guests?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we have Dino Miaolo here. He's an investor and an owner of a resort in Bali called the Floating Leaf, and then we also have Andy Peltz, and he is a pilot.
Welcome, everybody. And Madison, a lot of people think Qigong is it's like Tai Chi in the park, but that's actually not true. Can you tell us a little bit about being a doctor of Chinese medicine and your specialty?
Yes, absolutely. So Qigong is one of the 5 branches of Chinese medicine, so that's what I specialized in. And within Qigong, there is martial, medical, and spiritual. Those are the 3 different schools. So I went through the medical school training for Qigong. And within Qigong, there's external, they call it external Qi therapy, which is the clinical application of medical Qigong. And then there's also an internal practice, which are movements and forms that individuals learn, which are actually used in order to help prevent or overcome a specific ailment or pain within the body. There's only one university in the United States where an individual can receive formal medical Qigong education and training, which is in San Jose. Further, beyond the education, an individual can go on to apply and go through a national board certification, which is a credential that I do hold. And those are other very important facts for individuals to be aware of when they're out there and they're looking for somebody to help them in the energy-based field.
Why, Dino, what brought you to Madison?
Yeah, I met Madison about a year ago when I came back from a trip overseas when we were just first building the resort. I was there for about 3 months overseeing the final stages of construction. And one of the things we wanted to do, my partners and I, was build a resort that was up to U.S. construction standards, but trying to do that in a developing country was very challenging. And we were going over budget by pulling up floors, redoing walls and artwork that was getting broken, and we were way over budget and coming dangerously close to not meeting our grand opening day. So this was creating a ton of stress on me. I had probably all the symptoms that you would have with panic and stress. I wasn't able to sleep. I didn't eat. I was tripping over power tools on the job site. Very dangerous situation. I was having dizzy spells, shortness of breath.
All of this in Bali?
In Bali, if you believe that. The most
something was really wrong with you, Dino.
So, but if you've been to Bali, you know that the place is full of healers. And so some of the workers would suggest, well, why don't you go see a healer, Balinese healer, which I did. I saw healers. I went to cleansing rituals, purification ceremonies. I had Reiki done. I had never heard of Reiki until then. I even went to massages and had massages done, and none of it worked. Except the massages made me feel a little bit better at the time. But
sure.
But approaching, after all this, heading back to the job site, I'd start getting that shortness of breath again, and everything would just come flooding back. So the only thing that was left for me to do was really just to power through it, which I did. And I had to fly back here because we needed to get a U.S. quality insurance inspector to come down there and help finish this project so it's done correctly. And I was here for about a week, and I was still having these symptoms. And thought, okay, what I normally do is go out for a run, get some exercise. And I was in Mission Bay, about 3/4 of the way through a run on a beautiful day, and my head I started to get dizzy again, and this weird feeling I never had before. It felt like my head was filling up with helium. And that was the last thing I remember. The next thing, I was lying on my back, looking face up at people talking to me. I couldn't hear them. I couldn't hear anything at the time, but people were talking to me. And as my hearing came back, I heard a woman mention that she was going to try to call an ambulance. And first thing I said was, don't call an ambulance. Don't call an ambulance. Because I know that, knowing myself, I know that was going to make things worse. But one of the guys there, a really nice guy, says, okay, if you're not going to let us call an ambulance, at least let me drive you to the hospital just to be sure. I'll drive your car. My wife will follow in our car. And so after a while, I agreed to do that. I saw a doctor there. He came in, he said, well, the good news is you're not having a heart attack, which I kind of knew. I knew I wasn't having a heart attack. But then he goes, well, let me ask you, do you have any stress in your life at the moment?
Yeah, I just work in Bali,
right.
No big deal.
And so I told him the whole story. And he started to reach and write out a prescription for me, which I don't like taking pills. And I just told him, I said, look, I got into this without medication, without medicine, without any drugs. I want to get out of it that way too, because I don't like taking the medication unless I absolutely have to. So a little back and forth between me and the doctor on that topic, and he finally gives me a business card, Dr. Mansy's business card. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, Medical Qigong. Mm-hmm. And I'm staring at it, and he after our conversation, he knew exactly what I was thinking. He goes, don't worry, she's not going to try to summon the gods, or anything like that. That was really reassuring, was getting his...
Right, well, you've got a doctor in the emergency room handing you a medical Qigong card.
Right.
I mean, that's new. That's almost revolutionary for our medical system.
Yeah, it was. And this doctor was very open-minded. And one of the things that I didn't want, because I took the card, I was encouraged by this, but I still wasn't completely sold on it because I went back home. What I didn't want was somebody who had, like when I was in Bali, 2 weeks of Reiki training and, thought they had, they can heal me with their energy. I didn't want that.
Right.
I wanted something real. And he even said that her approach is very clinical. But I looked her up anyway, and I found out all about her. She was...
Did your research.
I'm going to butcher this, I know, but you're a double major at Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. I know she was a doctor. You got a lot of healthcare background. So this was all encouraging. Certified, licensed, all that. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give her a call. And I did. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you talk about the treatments and the stuff that we did. But I will say, and to kind of wrap all this up, when I walked out of there, and I tell people this story, but I have no other way to explain it other than to use cliches, is it did honestly feel like the weight of the world was finally off my shoulders. And not only was I able to go on and live my life normally like I had before, but there was even more stress. We had more problems with the construction project after I saw her that first time. Mm-hmm. But I was able to cope. I was productive. That's what
tools.
Was important to me. Yes, exactly. I had my tools back. And so all this stress wasn't keeping me from, like I told you before, tripping over power tools and almost killing myself, things like that. I was able to be productive again. And I didn't lose my drive. I was still, very ambitious with what we were doing, but I was able to function, and I went back for, I think we did it for almost 2 months, mm-hmm. I think, and then occasionally I go back for, I call them tune-ups. I don't know what you want to call them, but
follow-up care.
Yeah, this was, I'm very happy to, I probably would have, been happy to go to her even had I not had this incident.
And how about you, Andy? What's your story?
My story, a little different. I was towards the end of a divorce, which had been probably as good as any divorce could be.
That's big.
And we were doing a very good job.
Oh, you mean, I thought you were being facetious.
No, I wasn't.
So it was going smoothly.
It was going very, very smoothly, probably better than the marriage. until about a month, maybe 6 weeks prior to seeing Dr. Mansy. My ex decided she wasn't going to return back to California from where she'd previously lived in Zion, Illinois. We'd been living in California for the previous 10 years, and so it became a child custody dispute, which was driving me crazy.
Wow.
And it was interesting because I'd had tiny little episodes during our divorce or even our marriage. We did a lot of counselling, probably a year and a half's worth of counselling, where I'd get this inner cycle going in my head that would go round and round, and it'd last maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd think it was ruining my day. But then when it became a child custody dispute, it was 24/7. I mean, I was like a laptop. You'd open the laptop up. When my eyes woke up in the morning, and the first thing that happened was I had this negative audible cycle in my head that was making me feel like I was going crazy. Maybe I was going crazy. And it had been happening for exactly a month because...
Well, I could imagine the thought of losing a child would make a person start to go crazy.
Correct. So I was going crazy. And it was a real shame as well because we'd been doing great as parents. Her background was in developmental educational psychology, so I had unlimited access every day off work. I'd go and pick him up in the morning and take him back, and we'd talk about parenting plans in terms of what we were doing with him physically and mentally. You know, I had a list of different exercises I was doing in games and stuff like that, and then I was kind of in charge of the sports side of things. I was doing a lot of soccer and climbing and gymnastics with him, so it was going really good. And then all of a sudden, bam, and with very limited access as well, you know, to go and see him, I'd be flying back to Zion, Illinois. So I decided to seek help, maybe being a little bit too late, I thought at the time, and I just got on my insurance website and was flicking through, and I don't know how I was on Yelp, and you know how it goes, link, and there was a blog from Dr. Mansy on there that caught my attention that I just started reading and stopped looking around at different. It was like it was written for me. It was one of the things that like someone speaking directly to you. So picked up the phone, gave her a call, made an appointment the next day, and it was good actually to hear what Dino just said, because I thought maybe it was just because I was going crazy, the response. But I did maybe an hour and a half session where we had some practical tools. I'll let Dr. Mansy talk about what she does in the therapy session. But I came afterwards and it was like the weight of the world. In fact, I was unsure what had happened. I tried to recreate it and couldn't. Like, I was like, what's happened to that tape that I've had in my head for the last month non-stop?
I think that's amazing that you literally tried to recreate this negative syndrome, but you couldn't.
I couldn't.
After one session.
Wow. And I can recreate it now after lots of practice and effort. She did give me some practical tools to stop it, which I put into place a lot. Because there'd be triggers, you know, I'd have to speak to her. I'd call her, you know, to speak to the kid, or my parents were in town at the time, and with the
parents will do it.
Well, they were as helpful as they could be, but
they
we
are
had
helpful, but it's by nature.
Family child services appointment to organise, and then meeting with the lawyers and stuff like that. So as soon as I was in that cycle, in those environments, I could slip into this negative cycle. But when I was by myself, I was doing great.
Without pressure.
Correct. Yeah. If I was just by myself or having a cup of tea. Which it had been a month of just constant going crazy. The only time I'd been able to lose it was going to work. I was like, I'm just going to work a lot for a little bit.
And you're a pilot,
correct?
Right? Yeah. So it's pretty important that you're cool.
Yeah.
we don't need stressed out pilots.
And luckily, you know, because I did consider calling in sick. It was the one place where I'd been free from
zone.
It. It brought me into the zone and gave me something to focus on.
So Madison, these guys have amazing stories of how they got amazing results, but they're not talking a lot about how you get those results. Mm-hmm. So what is it that Qigong does that allows people to overcome serious anxiety, stress, and even physical pain?
Well, actually, I'm very fortunate because I went through a really solid doctoral program with the Medical Qigong. And, you know, as I work with individuals, we start off, you know, in dialogue, and we really dig down to the roots of what's happening, what's occurring, where this all first began. And then from there, there's specific protocols that are done to the individual's body. And then there are specific self-care tools that I will teach the individual so that way they can take this home and practice it to continue furthering their healing. Now, I really find it to be very, very instrumental to have such a solid education behind me, because if it wasn't for that, there's no way we'd be able to have these types of results.
Right. There's a lot of like Reiki masters. Can you talk a little bit? What's the difference if somebody's a Reiki master versus you're a doctor of Chinese medicine?
Well, I can speak in general about, energy-based medicine, as a whole. So there's a lot of people who love to say they're healers. Everybody wants to be a healer. Everybody wants to help somebody. And there are a lot of people who they find different seminars or workshops or schooling programs, and they go to school for maybe 2 days, and then they call themselves a healer. Some people say they learned it within their family or their grandmother taught them or whatnot. But the reason it's so crucial to actually go through a formal training program and get formal education is so that way you truly understand how to clinically apply what you've learned. So a lot of these other workshops and things that people go through, they learn to nourish and love. And that's great to nourish and love. We all need that. But there's a time and a place for everything. So if you go see somebody and all they're doing is nourishing and loving the body, if the person comes in with an excess condition, they're having an excess amount of anxiety or grief and sorrow or stress, what does this end up producing in the body physically? It ends up creating tightness in the chest. Sometimes this leads to high blood pressure. And if you see somebody who's nourishing and loving that condition, what happens? You're feeding it. You're allowing it to grow. It's exacerbating the situation.
So it's like a Band-Aid.
So in the moment, you can feel great. I mean, who doesn't like to have hands on the body and feeling like, they're in a therapeutic situation laying down on a table? Everybody loves that. In the moment, they feel great. But oftentimes, I'll have individuals come to me afterwards and say, I felt great in the moment, but afterwards, everything came back. And I feel like I'm caught in this rat race or this wheel, the gerbil wheel, and I'm not healing. And I think that has a lot to do with the level of education. So I can't speak specifically what these other programs are teaching, how involved and detailed they are, but I really encourage everybody out there to do their research. And if somebody tells you they're a healer or they offer energy work, really find out, do you have a certificate? Are you credentialed? Where are you credentialed? Where did you receive your schooling?
And clinicals, right? I mean, you've done many hours of actual hands-on work in clinical situations.
Absolutely. So somebody who maybe received a certificate in a day or two, how many hours of training did they receive? 10 hours total, 16, 20 hours? So another question I like to throw out there is, would you go see somebody for medical care that attended 2 days of medical school?
Only if it's for $5.
So why would you go see somebody who says they're a healer that had 2 days of training? Right?
I'm
Would
sure
you go
for
see
most
somebody
people,
who
that's
said,
a
I
money
learned
thing.
medicine from my father or my mother, it's been in my family for centuries, I'm a doctor? Or would you take your child or your mother or yourself only to somebody who went through a formal medical education program in the United States and then received board certification? The program I went through was over 1,000 hours. And within this 1,000 hours, as you just said, about half of it was clinical. So I had a clinical internship, a clinical externship that I did. My externship was actually at a cancer center where I worked with individuals to help them overcome the pain and side effects from cancer treatment. And as we go through clinicals, especially the internal, the internship, you're being supervised constantly. You're being watched to see, if you're making all the right moves.
So for physical pain, because this is energy-based medicine.
Right.
Most of the time, you're not even touching the person, correct?
It's a combination. There's a little bit of light touch that can be involved, and sometimes there's no touch at all.
So when we're talking about physical pain or an anxiety, like you said, the gerbil wheel, how does energy through people change that?
Great question. Oftentimes, these physical ailments, begin after there's already been a long laundry list of suppressed emotions that have been truly just trapped in the body. And when these trapped emotions have no way to release themselves, it ends up turning into a physical condition. So when somebody is receiving clinical application of external energy therapy or external Qi therapy, what happens is Qigong actually increases the efficiency for delivery of oxygen and nutrients to all the cells. And what happens is this enhances the individual's immune system and thereby improves health and healing. And there are specific protocols that are done for certain conditions.
And there's research about how Qigong, this human energy or Qi, actually has physical effects on the body.
Yes, absolutely. So it's a great point that you raised, Lisa, because a lot of people, when they think of Qigong or energy-based medicine, they think this is something that's alternative. Initially, this was considered alternative medicine because there was no evidence out there. There were no medical publications to prove it. So the difference between alternative medicine and evidence-based medicine is alternative medicine is something that has not been proven. Evidence-based medicine means there have been medical publications, research has been done, and the results have been published and proven. So since this first started out as being labeled as alternative, Qigong was originally labeled as an alternative, publications started to surface in a journal titled the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. And so if you go to this publication, you'll find many, many articles there that are published. Dr. Chen is a very popular PhD that writes on evidence-based medical Qigong. Dr. Chen is out of the University of Maryland. He's actually works in the Department of Psychiatry. Dr. Sancer is another PhD that also does a lot of writing on medical Qigong, and he's up in the Bay Area, and there's definitely a lot of evidence out there.
Furthermore, this probably was considered alternative here in the United States and a lot of Western medical countries, but this has been accepted as a standard in medicine in a lot of Eastern countries, right?
Absolutely. This is their medicine. This, in a lot of countries, this has been their first go-to. But in America, in the United States of America, it first started in the area of alternative because we didn't have that documentation here in the U.S.
What drew you to Qigong?
Great question. Actually, a personal experience that I went through. So growing up, I had a very strong scientific background with my father having a PhD in chemistry, my older brother having a PhD in biochemistry, and I actually worked in the field of conventional medicine for over 10 years. I served as a consultant in surgery, guiding physicians through surgeries, and was a very, very firm believer in this type of medicine because this is what we grow up within. And I went through quite a life crisis where I felt like my world was collapsing. I mean, stress had taken over. Working in that field was very high stress, working in surgery, working with physicians. And I reached the point where I thought I wasn't going to make it. Turned out I ended up meeting an individual that I became involved with, and he was an anesthesiologist. And he said to me, "Hey, have you ever heard of Qigong? Because I'm actually in this doctoral program, and I think this would be something for you to really consider, not only to help you in what you're going through in your personal life, but this could be something you could integrate into your future to help others as well."
And there you have it. The breakdown comes the breakthrough. That's awesome.
It was really life-changing, life-transforming.
I want to let everybody that's listening know that we would love your feedback. If you have questions, concerns, you're sick, you want more information, you can email us at feedback@thorpeinstitute.com. And I hope you know how to spell feedback, but Thorpe is THORPINSTITUTE, Thorpe Institute. There's no E on the end of Thorpe. So feedback@thorpeinstitute.com. We'd love you to write into us. This is your show. And also, if you go to health and wellnessandsanitas.com, you will be able to see the show notes for this show. So there's links back to Dr. Mansy's website and additional information, links that we like to include about the different things we talk about in the show. We'd love it if you subscribed. Please share the information. And once again, if you have any questions, feel free to submit questions and comments. So, Dr. Mansy, we always ask guests, and I believe we asked you the last time you were here, but maybe you have something new for this show. What would be the number one wellness tip that you would recommend people?
I would say, the majority of people are breathing incorrectly, and it's really important to make sure that we're breathing properly. Many people are shallow breathing. So
I feel like I'm shallow breathing right now when you say that. Oh, take a deep breath.
So really allow yourself to stop and take time to breathe deeply into your abdomen. And as you inhale, you want to expand the abdomen fully. And on the exhale, you allow the abdomen to deflate. So you inhale through the nose, expanding the abdomen out, exhaling through the mouth as you release.
Belly breathing, people. Get into that belly. That's awesome. It's such a quintessential part of life, but you're right. I think most of us are doing it wrong. Just learning to breathe right can change somebody's lives. Is that one of the tools that, Dino, that you were sent home with?
Because I always thought, breathing, you breathe through the chest, and I wanted to lift my chest up and take all my hair in there, and that's not the case. Mm-hmm. So when I learned to breathe better, that was definitely something that helped for sure.
Mm-hmm. The majority of people are actually reverse breathing. So if you were to look at a baby breathes naturally with the cycle we just explained. But the moment that a baby or a child gets their first shock in life or gets yelled at, what happens? Everything goes inward. And when everything goes inward, that's when they start to reverse breathe. And that's where complications over time start to develop.
So literally, most of our wellness and health issues could have started all with that first time we were dropped off the couch. Oh my God! Now we've been breathing wrong ever since. So we should be teaching breathing in kindergarten and in nursery school.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
How about you, Andy?
I can't remember. I think we discussed it. I can't remember taking it away. I think I was already doing it as part of. I have a little hypnosis meditation. My mother was a counselor traditionally and did hypnosis and NLP.
Lucky guy.
So I got access to. I've read probably the whole Tony Robbins anthology.
You had a good mom.
Yeah, which is very ironic growing up for me because. My sister was she's now an eye surgeon, but she went to medicine at Cambridge, and she was she never said, "Mum, I'm anti all this rubbish," but it came across. And now she's got a child with some learning and developmental problems that science can't answer, and she's doing every alternative type of care that there is, which is a big change. But yeah, so I have a meditation CD where I was doing something, and we did discuss it, mainly just trying to go to sleep. When I have that cycle in my head, or just when I need to go to sleep because I'm working in 2 hours and I've got an hour. Like tonight I'm doing a red eye, so I'd go there and get there at 10 and try and sleep for an hour before I do a fly across the country.
So what was the most powerful tool or takeaway that Dr. Mansy gave you? It
was a different mental meditation to do it all visually and play it in my head. When I started to go into a negative cycle, the phraseology I've been using was stop, erase, delete, but it was also, we wrote down a meditation where I visualized play with my son, that was the...
So instead of focusing on the loss, you were focusing on the relationship.
What I wanted to get, yeah.
Yeah, focusing on the positive.
Correct.
Sounds easier than it is to do, I'm sure everybody knows. Well, this is
really critical to be able to stop the negative self-talk that a lot of individuals acquire over time. And once we're able to stop the negative self-talk and really get into changing the subconscious mind that's feeding the conscious mind, that's really where you know true healing is occurring.
Well, and the extra energy that you bring as a skilled Qigong master, a doctor of Qigong rather, I think oftentimes people need an intervention because just telling them probably isn't enough.
Absolutely. It's the combination of the clinical application as well as being able to teach the specific self-care tools.
Right, because most people don't even recognize that they're having negative thoughts. They just recognize the last part of it, which is the bad feeling.
Right.
And they may not even recognize the tension or the negative feeling. It just all of a sudden manifests fully, like you said, into pain or a full-on disease. But it all starts originally with that negative thought pattern.
That was very much my situation too. Was with all this stress and things going wrong with the resort at the time. I was focusing on the problems and the negativity. When I settled down, I was able to get this weight off. I was able to focus on solutions. You know, I think it's probably important to say, because my business partners would kill me if I didn't say that the resort is doing great right now.
What's the name of the resort?
Floating Leaf. The website is balifloatingleaf.com.
Bali Floating Leaf.
And we've got amazing resort.
Yeah, and we've got great reviews from guests, and it's really working well. So the whole experience with Dr. Mansy was positive, not only with myself but the resort.
Is Dr. Mansy going to lead some sort of Qigong retreat at the Floating Leaf? Come on,
I would love
people.
her to do that. That would be great.
The most
Sounds like
powerful
a plan to me.
healing in a healing place, right? No, that sounds like a winning combination. Andy's going to fly you there. It's going to be great. Well, this has been wonderful. Dr. Mansy, thank you so much for coming back and for sharing your amazing expertise. I very much appreciate and love sharing these types of practices and options for people to overcome their stress, their pain, their diseases. And as I've mentioned before, for all of you listening, we'd love your feedback. You can email us at feedback@thorpeinstitute.com. This is Health and Wellness Encinitas. This is Lisa Thorpe. Thank you again for listening and have a wonderful day.